In this full drive technique video, I'm going to talk about how to do flat water pump practice. So one of the many advantages of full drive is that you do not even need a dock or a ladder or a boat to jump off to practice flat water pumping. So from literally anywhere you like on the water, you can get up onto foil using full drive, and then you just have to ollie up, high on the mast, and you can pump around to your heart's content. You don't need a dock. The irony of this video is that where I was doing it, there was actually a dock. Anyway, there are four parts to this technique. First of all, the flat water takeoff. Now I've done a completely separate video of how to do this on a small prone board, so if you want to watch that to see the technique of how it's done, then please do so. As far as this process goes, the next stage is e-foiling around with the motor high on the mast in assist position. Thirdly, there is the ollie to get from e-foiling to pumping, then obviously pumping around, and finally the transition from pumping back to e-foiling. Now this video isn't about pump technique itself, it's really just to show you the potential that full drive has to help you practice pumping, and for me to show you the transitions to going from e-foiling to pumping and then from pumping back to e-foiling again. So let's start with the ollie. This is essentially one huge pump. You crouch down by bending at the knees, and then you're going to really jump up. Rather than pushing down, you're jumping up, but with a lot of back foot pressure. That back foot pressure is absolutely essential to get high on the mast. And once you're at the top of the pump, you then unweigh yourself by bringing your knees back up to your chest before you then carry on pumping. That's essential if you're going to get high on the mast. You crouch down, you push up or jump up, applying a lot of back foot pressure, more back foot pressure than normal, and then at the top of your pump, you then bring your knees up to your chest in order to unweigh yourself for as long as possible before you carry on pumping. Now at this stage I just wanted to show you a few examples of what you can also do with full drive while you're doing your pump practice. Just try doing this sort of continual carving when you're pumping from a dock start. It literally is impossible. So carving around, e-foiling, and then the ollie. Here we go. Springing up from a crouch position to get height on the mast is what the ollie is all about. And straight away there's going to be a transition from pumping to e-foiling. In the transition, it's really important to remember that as you pull the trigger, you need to push down with your front foot to counteract the lift that the motor is going to give. Now I'm pausing it here just to mention about e-foiling in the assist motor position. Because the motor is so high on the mast, close to the board, you're going to have to pay real careful attention to pitch control. Because there's such a short distance between the motor and the board itself, then you don't have much margin for error for keeping the motor in the water without the board touching the water and creating drag. It is a technique that you will just get used to, and it actually improves your pitch control dramatically. So bear with it, and trust me, it's a skill that just gets better and easier the more you do it. Okay, so here's another example of an ollie, crouching down and springing up. Now here you can see that I'm very high on the mast. In actual fact, and this time I got a little bit too close. This is an 82 centimeter mast, and as you can tell, not much space left. So my point is that using full drive, because the motor position really helps you to practice staying high on the mast as you're pumping. You can feel and tell when the motor is dipping in and out of the water. Doesn't create a huge amount of drag, but it's just something that's really helped my pitch control from the point of view of consciously trying to keep high on the mast so that the motor doesn't dip into the water. And that is obviously the zone of the mast that you want to be in for maximum pumping efficiency. Now here's an example of a transition that as you carve around, you try and carve as much as you can, and at the end of it you just transition to e-foiling. It's lovely and smooth and feels really good, helps you practice your carves. And to add to that, using full drive for flat water pumping has so many other advantages. For example, fitness. It's a different type of fitness to pure flat water pumping from a dock start, but you're still on foil for such a long time, and you're doing that continual mixture between pumping and e-foiling and carving, back to pumping. When you need a rest, you go back to e-foiling. Then you ollie up and carry on pumping. So it is really good for your fitness still. And wake thieving becomes super easy. You can just join a wake from e-foil and then ride the wake as long as you want, and then e-foil back again. No more falling off and having to paddle in by yourself. So I think that's all I needed to say. Now I'm going to hand over to the captions so that you can have one last example of an ollie in the transition with a little summary.